Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com 2025 Girls Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, X account, and Instagram account. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight on IdahoSports.com. As you're hanging out and you want to give your favorite team, player, coach a shout out, throw it in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen. And while you're hanging out, if you could hit that like button, if you're on Facebook, the subscribe button on YouTube, share this when it's all said and done. That'll help everybody who wasn't here live tonight find it a little easier on replay. It is time for our 3A girls state basketball tournament preview. Used to be 2A. I'm still getting used to the classification changes. Let's bring on Dave Hadley, newcomer to the IdahoSports.com broadcasting roster this season. Dave is going to be broadcasting the 3A tournament along with me. So it's just the two of us, Dave. Are you ready?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to 3 great days of 3A basketball for sure.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's take a look at the bracket here, Dave. 3 versus 6 to kick it off. Melba and New Plymouth. Those are conference rivals. Parma and Soda Springs, the 2 and 7. Malad and North Fremont, a 1 and an 8. And then the 4-5 is Grangeville and Ryrie. All right, Coach Hadley, what is the first thing that jumps out to you when you look at this 3A bracket?
Well, the first thing that I see is right now, I think Malad and Parma are probably the 2 teams that are playing the best basketball. They're on the opposite side of the bracket and kind of on a collision course, I think, to meet in the Idaho Center. But at the same time, I see a lot of teams that have some individual players who've started to step up a little bit for their teams. I think the Grangeville-Ryrie matchup is going to be a really fun one to watch. And other than Malad and Parma, maybe everybody else is pretty equal and has a good chance to make it to Friday and maybe even to Saturday.
Yeah, the first thing that jumps out to me when I look at this bracket is rematches. 3 of the 4 opening round matchups are matchups we've already seen this season. Malad and North Fremont is the only one that we haven't, which is crazy because we've got like Parma and Soda Springs. Those aren't 2 teams you would think would have played each other in the regular season, and yet they did. Parma and Melba traveled to Soda Springs and Malad in December and played them on back-to-back nights. So Melba has beaten New Plymouth every time they've played this year, 3 times in total. Parma beat Soda Springs pretty convincingly when they played back in December. Grangeville and Ryrie, that 4 and 5, yes, they played each other. They're like from opposite ends of the state. They met in the middle, Dave, and played in Mountain Home in December. Ryrie won that game by 10. And then Grangeville lost their best player right after that, Madeline Green, the 6'2" senior center. She had mono, wasn't feeling great in that Ryrie game, and then was out for an extended stretch after that. And so this is going to be a really fun bracket here. We're already starting to get some comments and some chatter. So here is C-Rick's music. Ryrie is a team that intrigues me. They beat Grangeville earlier and played South Fremont close both times. It's interesting that they got paired here. Yes, for sure. IdahoSports.com. This must be our boss, Paul Kingsbury. Ryrie, a strong 5 seed. Unfortunately, they're on the same side as Malad. And then Gary Jones, this is a residual 4A comment. This will surprise a lot of people, but I'm actually rooting for Fruitland because their coach, Willie Lake, is a good friend of mine. Go, Willie. All right, Gary, we appreciate that. And Gary's coming up in a little bit with the 1A state preview. So let's talk about it. You think it's Malad and Parma on a collision course? Well, Dave, those 2 teams happen to play this season. Malad won that game by 16 points, 56-40. So is that it? Just a coronation of Malad, and that's it? It's over?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I just think both of these teams, Malad only has 1 senior on their team. And so they've started the year trying to get a feel for themselves. And although they're 22-1, it probably didn't take a long time for them to be able to get used to each other. They're playing really good basketball, and they've got a lot of depth. And I just see Parma, their championship game over Melba was a pretty dominating performance. And it just seems like both of those teams have just reached their stride.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. Here's Sean Kane in the chat. Coach Trevor Jones doing work with Malad. Yes, the Dragons, after not making it to state last year, Bear Lake and Soda Springs got the 2 spots out of their district. They're like a team on a mission this year, no doubt about it. Here's Matthew Arnold. He says if Parma is on, they are tough for sure. And then I actually got this wrong. Here's Coach Michelle Barger, head coach of the Grangeville Bulldogs. Sorry, Coach Barger. Adelaide LaFay was out for 2 months. not Madeline Green. Sorry about that. But still missing a key player for a good chunk of the season. And so, let's talk about Parma for a second here, Dave. This is a Parma team that also didn't lose a ton this year. I mean, they lost to Malad, and then their only other loss this season came at the very end of January against Bishop Kelly, a team that's playing in the 5A state tournament, and that's it. What I've been told about Parma is that if the shots are falling, then they're really tough to beat, but they have gone cold a couple of times this year. And if those perimeter shots aren't falling, that's when they are susceptible to maybe an upset somewhere.
Yeah. And I think Parma has the ability to be able to play a lot of different ways. They're a team that if you want to play them zone, they've got girls that can step outside and knock down shots. If you want to play man-to-man, they're able to get the ball into the paint. Being able to do both of those things, I think, plays to their advantage as they move into a tournament. When you don't get a lot of opportunity to scout and you're trying to make up a game plan on a 24-hour notice, if you will, before you play somebody again, that makes it a lot tougher for teams. Now, granted, there is some familiarity on that side of the bracket, but I think that gives Parma an advantage.
Yeah. Parma's got so many great athletes, Riley Calkins and Ari Harris and Cadence Kaiser and Gentry, and just really good athletes up and down the roster. Let's talk about Melba for a second, the number 3 seed. And hey, Melba fans, if I'm wrong at the end of this, I'll wear it. But just to me, Melba to me is not the third best team behind Malad and Parma. And I'm using the head-to-head data, to support that, because you look at Melba and they've lost to Parma like 47-15. And then they lost to Parma in the district championship by 30, 51-21. They played Malad earlier this year and lost by, 20 plus points. I would argue both Grangeville and Ryrie are maybe better teams than Melba. Talk me out of it, Coach Hadley.
Well, I think with max preps now, it's hard to talk you out of that one, to be honest with you. So much of the final rankings come based upon the quality of the conference that you're in, and Melba plays in a good conference. They've got a pretty well-balanced conference, and so it's hard, as you mentioned, they've had some games where they haven't scored a lot of points, and so it's hard to say without me seeing them live this year, where they fit into those rankings. But again, a lot of debate as to whether the max preps is the greatest system to go with seeding, but it is the way it is. And I tend to agree with you. I think Ryrie and Grangeville, North Fremont, if their big 3 get hot, they're going to be a tough team to be able to come out of there, because they can score a lot of points too.
Yeah, let's talk about, I think the best matchup opening round by far is going to be Ryrie and Grangeville, that 4-5. They played, like we said, in December in Mountain Home. Ryrie won that game by 10. Coach Barger noting that Grangeville and Ryrie both had very hard schedules. Yes. When you look at Ryrie and who they played this year, they played Sugar Salem twice. They played South Fremont twice. They played Malad twice. They lost to Malad at the Ryrie Bulldog shootout only by 9 points. 59-50. So, I mean, they played Teton, who didn't even make it to state from 4A, only because South Fremont and Sugar are in their conference. Otherwise, they probably could have made it to state. So, yes, that's a very difficult schedule for Ryrie.
And Ryrie's very well balanced. They're going to be a team that can spread you out. They've got great shooters. I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to the most in the state tournament is Ryrie's ability to get a team to have to extend defensively, and a lot just based upon location. They do have to play in District 6 some tough basketball teams just because of travel restrictions and those sorts of things that they get, the Sugars and the Tetons, the South Fremonts, and so they've had a tough schedule. They're very well battle tested going into this.
Yeah, here's C. Ricks in the chat. If conference balance was a factor in max preps, Ryrie and North Fremont would be much higher because of how deadly the nuclear conference was. Yeah, really. Firth, West Jefferson were 2 really good teams as well this year in that nuke. So Ryrie, you mentioned they've got the guards, the Boone sisters, Lucy and Liza Boone. They've got Shay Sutton, who is a great facilitator of the offense. They've got Robson, who's really talented. I'm worried about in a matchup with Grangeville. Grangeville's got the size. They've got the 6'2" Madeline Green, who's committed to the I'm trying to remember where she is committed to. I think Lewis and Clark State, locally in Lewiston, but she's going to play at the next level. Grangeville is a team that also challenged itself with a really hard schedule this year. They played Timberlake twice. They played McCall Donnelly twice. They played Ryrie in that neutral site game. They played Prairie, which is going to stay at the 2A level. They played Lapway, which is a 2A powerhouse. And so North Idaho, it's kind of always out of sight, out of mind. The rest of the state doesn't really pay attention to what's going on up in North Idaho, but I'm telling you, it's the Grangeville team that is dangerous. I mentioned the 6'2" Green. They've also got Adelaide LaFay, who's 6 foot. And so I'm just worried about Ryrie. How do they match up with Grangeville size? They did beat them once this year, but I guarantee you Grangeville took that and has a game plan to counteract what Ryrie did to them the first time.
Yeah, I think it's, again, another one of these games that, depending on how quickly Grangeville can get out and force Ryrie into doing some things that Ryrie isn't comfortable doing, could be the key to this game. I think the score at the end of the first quarter will be real telltale sign for how this one may play out. If Ryrie can get a lead on Grangeville and force Grangeville to get out, Ryrie's guards are quick. They run a really nice back screen type offense that gets their guards into the paint. And being able to do that, I think, is going to dictate how Grangeville has to come back. So I think the first quarter of this game could be the most important quarter for either one of these teams in the tournament.
Yeah, it could be pivotal. Grangeville did add a game to their schedule late in the year against Deer Park, Washington, one of the best teams in Washington. I believe they're still undefeated in Washington play. I could be wrong there. But they picked up Deer Park, and they played 3 games in 3 days, Coach. Deer Park on Thursday, Kellogg on Friday, Priest River on Saturday, all 3 road games. And Coach Barger kind of wanted to simulate, hey, at state, you've got to win 3 games far away from home. We're going to try and do the same here in the regular season. They lost the first game to Deer Park, but they won the next 2. So I like that aspect of it as well, trying to prepare her team there. Here's Gary Jones in the chat. Go Lady Pilgrims. Let's talk about New Plymouth. They get obscured a little bit because they're playing in this conference with Parma and Melba, but I think this is a New Plymouth team that's got some really good guards as well. A second-year coach in Tara Lake, who's came over from the Middleton program. We know how good Middleton is, putting some of that Middleton DNA into that New Plymouth program. This is a sneaky team also.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Brandon, I haven't had a chance to see them one time yet this year. I haven't had a chance to see them on film yet. I was going to watch some of their games tomorrow. So I don't have a lot that I can add as far as that goes, but I do know that experience in the conference that they're playing in, being able to go against Parma, being able to go against Malad. And like you say, Coach Lake coming from a program that thrives in the discipline. You know that New Plymouth's going to be a disciplined basketball team and not make a lot of mistakes. And they're going to make their opponents have to come out and beat them.
Let's talk about the last 2 teams, North Fremont and Soda Springs from East Idaho. These to me are 2 very dangerous teams. Neither one of them spent any time above 500 this year, I think. They both come in with basically 500 records. Soda is 11-11, and North Fremont is 13-13. 2 programs that we're used to seeing at state. North Fremont is actually the highest placing team that is back. They got to the championship last year. Ben Lenz in his 26th season on the North Fremont sidelines. They just seem to find a way to grit through and win these types of games in the postseason. They're doing it all without their best player, Josie Richardson, who they lost to injury at the start of the year. And they're kind of like a Ryrie. They've just got good athletes, and they just throw athlete after athlete at you.
Yeah, and they're not a deep team. I've been able to watch North Fremont quite a bit this year, and honestly, there are 6 players deep. They're kind of a 3-headed monster, if you will, a little bit. Taylor Sessions, Peyton Lenz, Grace Heiner. Those 3 have kind of led North Fremont all year. I think their success might actually come from their other 2 starters. Yadira Patino and Katie Picard are both players that have really stepped up late in the season. Yadira had a huge district tournament game against West Jefferson to eliminate West Jefferson and send them on in the tournament. And I think their success might come down to whether or not those 2 girls can play a pivotal role. But the 3 girls that Ben's relied on, all 3 of them have scored over 300 points this year, led by Taylor Sessions, and she's kind of taken the mantle a little bit with Josie out. And they're playing really well right now, too. I think Ben is probably one of the better coaches in the state of Idaho with his experience. And he is as good as anybody, I think, and being able to make adjustments within a quarter, within a halftime. And so I don't think North Fremont's going to ever be outguessed or outplayed as far as strategy goes.
Yep, for sure. And then just to wrap up Soda Springs, 2 seniors. It's a young team, but man, those 2 seniors are good. Abby Gooden and Gracie Moldenauer, part of teams that have been to state in years past. So we'll keep an eye on it. Here are our 3A players to watch. We chose one player from each team, just kind of a jumping off point. Madeline Green from Grangeville, Izzy Haycock from Malad, Taraya Carter from Melba, Hope Haley, New Plymouth, Peyton Lenz from North Fremont, Riley Calkins from Parma, Liza Boone from Ryrie, and Abby Gooden from Soda Springs. Give me one player you're excited to see compete this weekend, Coach.
I don't know whether she's known across the state or not, but she is one of my favorite players that I've watched this year, and that's Izzy Haycock from Malad. She is just tough. She plays the point guard for them. She just doesn't get rattled. I've seen teams throw a lot of different looks at her, and she just has that grit about her. Malad only has, as we mentioned, that one senior, and so Izzy's kind of taken on that role of the leadership, and I just think she's fun to watch. Her facial expression never changes, and she's able to get her team organized and where they're supposed to be. You're probably not going to hear a lot from a stat standpoint. She's not going to be that 25-point-a-night person, but she's going to be the one that leads Malad, I think, to a state title.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I am really excited to see Taraya Carter from Malad, or from Melba, excuse me. Fantastic volleyball player. She's got great height, great size, and I believe she is going to play basketball at Idaho State University. So she has been kind of a volleyball player her whole life, and then committed to Idaho State, the Bengals over in Pocatello, to play basketball. So that's the player I'm excited to see, is Taraya Carter from Melba. C. Rick says Soda is a team that can always cause an upset or two. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled a first-round upset. Well, with that, let's look at the bracket one more time here, Dave. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Give me your championship prediction and your championship winner, and then I'll do the same.
Well, I'm going to still stay with Melba and Malad in the championship game. I think they're just the 2 strongest teams, and Malad, even though they're young, which scares me a little bit, not making it last year. The stage gets bigger. You never know how kids are going to respond to that. But I just think their depth, and especially their ability to play in any way you want to play. If you want to try to speed Malad up, they're willing to speed up. If you want to slow down, they're as good a set play team with Coach Jones in the state. And so I'm going to take Malad to win this one.
Okay. My official pick. I've had this opinion for a long time, all the way back to last year's state basketball tournament, where North Fremont beat Grangeville by a point in the semifinals, 43-42 on a last-second foul. I said at that time, if Grangeville had been in the championship instead of North Fremont versus Bear Lake, I think Grangeville wins the title last year. I think Grangeville, coming into the season, was the best team. They had some players in and out of the lineup. They've stubbed their toe a couple of times. They played a very rigorous schedule. I'm sticking with it. I'm going Grangeville past Malad in the semifinals, and I'll take Grangeville over Parma in the championship game. That breaks my heart because Parma is the only team in this tournament that has never won a girls basketball state championship. I think the drought continues for Parma, and I will go with the Grangeville Bulldogs to win it all there. So those are our official predictions. And again, if we're wrong, let us have it on social media. I'm ready for it. So
it's going to be a fun tournament all the way through. And I don't think that's a bad pick to have Grangeville come out of that either.
For sure. All right, Dave, I'm looking forward to broadcasting the 3A tournament with you. Go Bulldogs from Coach Barger on the way out for sure. And we are excited to see Coach Barger and everybody else down there at Bishop Kelly High School this weekend. Dave, thanks for hopping on tonight and doing this. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for including me into the broadcast. I look forward to it.
Of course. All right. I can see the steam coming out of Joel Richardson's ears. He's been waiting patiently this whole time to talk about the 2A girls state tournament, and we will do it right after this break. You're watching the 2025 Idaho High School girls basketball state tournament preview special on IdahoSports.com.
Dear Winter, our squad of vehicles with all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive is ready. Bundle up. Toyota. Let's go places.